Hey all, I hope you like the new intro. Not sure if I'm keeping it, I'm trying out some new things. I've been thinking a little bit more about Moon Knight and I think we should talk about the museum. The first time we see the museum, or the National Art Gallery as it says on the front, is as a reflection in a puddle Stephen steps in. I actually thought it was such an impressive shot that I've used it for the thumbnail in my first Nightwatch video. But as we now know, mirror images mean more in the show than just representing an image. It shows us the same thing in a different version, like Stephen and Mark. If we apply this to the place of Stephen's work, it's probably already an indication that not everything is right with this place, that it is different from how it appears. But on the inside the place seems just as ordinary as others like it, especially when it comes to Stephen's own domain, the gift shop. Even his boss Donna bullying him seems commonplace. What isn't commonplace is Dylan, the tour guide, asking Stephen if they are still on for Friday, for a date at the steakhouse. Two things about this are strange here. Stephen has no recollection of asking Dylan out or even talking to her about it. The second is that Stephen is a vegan and would probably not have asked her to eat at that place. But if not Stephen, who did? We'll come back to that later. Stephen knows a lot about Egyptology, things the normal gift shoppers would probably not know. His boss doesn't and possibly considers it a little nerdy that Stephen does. But he has a lot of time at night when he tries not to fall asleep, and he owns a lot of books about Egyptian gods and religion. He seems to like working at the museum, even while he'd rather be a tour guide, and even while people don't treat him very well. As the first episode progresses, Stephen returns to work on Monday, but things have changed. He's met Arthur Harrow and his Amit cult, and gave away his name, occupation and hometown. He's still a little confused when Harrow tracks him down that morning, bringing several of his disciples. One he didn't need to bring though. Ronnie, one of the security guards at the museum, is with Harrow's cult. He shows Stephen his scales tattoo. This is probably how Harrow found Stephen so fast, even while Stephen never mentioned where he worked exactly. It turns out London isn't just Stephen's home base, and that's also Mark's. Harrow has connections there too. A whole community that's built around the promise of a better life through Amit's type of justice. This is a strange coincidence, considering Stephen first met Harrow in the Bavarian Alps. To have someone of Harrow's community working there seems another convenient coincidence. And we should also not forget that the museum's focus is on Egypt, with ancient artwork and treasures on display. Could the scarab have been one of those? Is this how Margaret got the lead to even go to this place in the Alps, following someone who had taken the scarab from the exhibition? Those are questions worth pondering, I think. Here's another. If Mark was in London explicitly to track down the scarab that leads to Amit's tomb, did he use Stephen to get inside the museum? Now the nature of Mark's mental illness seems to make it impossible for him to know what Stephen is doing. If he and Stephen had been co-conscious before, Stephen would have been aware of Mark long before he first appeared to him in the mirror. And I think this is where the man comes in that was identified by one of the writers of the show as Crawley, an informant and friend of Mark's, the man who works as a living statue. Stephen seems to tell this man everything. He certainly told him about the crush he had on the tour guide, and I would wager this is how Mark knew about it, tried to help Stephen out, but didn't even know that Stephen was a vegan. Crawley told Mark. He's probably there especially to keep an eye on Stephen, as Mark cannot do this himself. And yes, all of what I'm saying here is certainly bigger than the museum, but consider something else in connection with this place. The conversation Stephen had with the man from Human Resources as he was getting fired. The conversation isn't terribly noteworthy as such. The fact that Stephen was fired could have been something he just tells Crawley, and that's it. But there was the fact that the guy from HR was kinda creepy and recommended some doctors to Stephen. This alone seems strange. I'm not really familiar how things like this are handled in England, but to get a referral for a medical facility by the place you've just been fired from seems off. And the guy from HR specifically says they have a long-standing relationship with this place. Maybe I underestimate the stress of a museum job, but why do they specifically need a working relationship with a medical facility? The flyer that's presented to Stephen doesn't give anything away. It has the same logo printed at its bottom that the man has on his shirt. AG, National Art Gallery of London. Still, the connection seems weird. And why isn't it NAG if the letters stand for the name of the museum? Unless AG doesn't stand for Art Gallery and there's a connection to Amit there. Maybe. You could say this is all a little far-fetched. I may seem like a tinfoil hat kind of person to you right now, but those are just some things I noticed that felt off about Stephen's place of work, or former place of work. If you have some thoughts about all this, I'd like to read them in the comments. Do you think I'm bonkers? Say it nicely. But yeah, comment, like, subscribe, like they do on the YouTubes. And above all, stay safe and watch Marvel.